Welcome. Happy Friday to everybody. I don't think there's anybody here. Well, I don't know your name.
I'm Catherine.
Catherine?
I've been here a long time.
Nice to see you. I do remember your face. I don't think I know your name. I think I know everybody else, though. I'm Tana. Today's talk is going to be about death.
Oh, it's today.
Today?
Exciting.
If you didn't show up, I would have been mad, Sandy. This is really for you, really. Actually, it's really for all of us. Death is a really uplifting topic if you're a committed Buddhist, so I'm okay with talking about it today. Is there anybody new here? Just in case anybody missed last week, these are volunteers from Bali Rica, from Spain and Italy, is that right?
Yeah.
What were your names again? Mariana
Gabriel.
and Gabriel. Nice to see you guys again. And I think everybody else is pretty regular. Has anybody got any announcements for Sangha? Hi.
Well, I'm just looking for a house sitter. Anybody?
Also Tuesday, Mom will be here.
Right. That's exciting.
Oh, this one.
This Tuesday. Makeup date. Yeah. Perfect. So Pam has agreed to lead us into helping us drop in. A little bit stretchy, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of everything. I suppose. Let's start in a seated position. I mean, I feel like we kind of know the routine by now. Especially everybody here. You guys have been coming a long time, so much longer than me. Feel the parts of the body that are touching the seat or the ground or your cushion. So one by one, the sides of the feet or the bottoms of the feet, looking up from the ground, the sides of the legs, backs of the thighs, the seat, the hip points. So setting yourself up on the hip points so that the natural sway in the low back is preserved and your belly is just relaxed. So you can take breaths. Grow up through the spine. Visualize the vertebrae stacking through the mid-back, between the shoulders, and allow the shoulder blades to slide down the back. Shoulders are relaxed away from the ears, and the arms are just resting in your lap or on your knees, palms up, palms down. Notice the hands touching each other or resting on your thighs. Notice that connection. Heat the body is generating. Still stacking through the neck, all the way into the back of the head, really. Tuck the chin so that the crown of the head is pointed up towards the sky. Relax the face. Soften the ears. And around the mouth and around the eyes. When you're full like you're just waking up. Oh, and lower the right arm. Side bend. Exhale. So on the exhale, you're kind of squeezing the rib cage on the right and opening the rib cage on the left. Inhale through center. Lower the left hand. Right arm comes up and over. Squeeze. Squeeze all the breath out. Fill fully. Inhale up. Twist. Take the left hand to the right knee. Stay long through the spine. But relax. It's kind of like an awareness in your body. Big breath. Inhale through center. Exhale to the other side. Grab the knee. Lower the shoulders. Look back over the left shoulder. If you feel any tension, just relax away from it. Inhale back through center. This time, cradle the back of your head like you were going to do sit-ups. The thumbs on either side of the neck, under the ear. Stay grounded so that center that we build, squeeze the belly button in just a little bit to support the back. Think about lifting the chest and opening the face up to the sky. And just a back bend of the upper back. So you're kind of lifting the head up and over, opening the chest up towards the sky. You might not move much at all. It's just energetically. Feel the weight of the arms kind of relaxing back. But if you feel any tension or pain, just move out of it. Big breath. Feel the chest open. Breathe into the chest. Squeeze it out. Squeeze the belly. Breathe in fully. Exhale. Come back to center. One more big stretch up towards the sky. Ooh. Oh. Namaste.
Stay. Thank you, Pam. So, did everyone know what the topic was when they came today?
Sí, señorita, no.
No? The topic is, we're going to talk about death from the Buddhist perspective. So, thanks for coming if you did know what it was about. Thanks for coming if you didn't. I appreciate the time that you trust me with on these Fridays. So, death from a Buddhist perspective. It's funny how little we talk about death because it is, I believe, preparing for death is one of the central tenets of Buddhism. I think it is like 85% of what we're doing here. And the other 15% is trying to improve this realm that we're operating in here. I mean, those are my numbers. I'm just making them up as I go. But I really believe that they gel, of course. I think if the more you try to be a person of a virtuous life, doing meritorious actions, you're going to improve this realm that we're operating in right here. But we're also preparing for our death. And in Buddhism, death is a huge transit spot. People that are committed to becoming enlightened, let's say a scholar who wanted to get to the ultimate sense of enlightenment, would practice dying a lot before death came around. There's actually a lot of Buddhist practices where you learn to appreciate things to their fullest by imagining not having them anymore. There's a couple of death practices where you imagine all your loved ones or your pets or whoever you're close to gone to increase the gratitude and joy of having them here with you today. That's sort of one factor. But one of the big no-nos in Buddhism is trying to hang on to this life as you transition to either another rebirth or enlightenment, whichever your path is going to be. So they teach a lot of preparedness. death preparedness, basically. Get used to it. Here it comes. How you going to be? Like firemen running fire drills. It's like, there's going to be hot. We're going to be anxious. There's going to be chaos. How are you going to drop in and do the things that you know how to do to get this fire out and keep everybody safe? And that's kind of what these death preparation meditations are like for the scholars. We as householders don't have to go that far. But they have one meditation where they talk about the 9 levels of disintegration. Kind of like memento mori in Mexico, where you become used to death by watching in your mind's eye something shrivel up and turn back, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, goo to goo, however it might be. And it's pretty graphic. It's like, okay, the corpse has turned black now, we're going to meditate on that. The corpse has gone runny now, we're going to meditate on that. Really getting used to this concept that this is temporary. It's all going to change. It's all impermanent. And it's a lot to ask of oneself. I mean, we're so invested in this stuff to think of it as turned into goo and gone. But the more we do it, the more easy that becomes. So there's a story that I really cannot find. I can't find the citation for it, per se. I read the Tibetan book of the living and dying 20 years ago or so, and I think it's out of that, but I could be wrong. But the story is of this person, and I think he was a scholar or a monk, who was so in love with life and so in love with his body that at the time of death, he couldn't let go of his body. He kept running back to his body as he was dying. And his punishment, I'm going to say punishment, or the lesson that he was given at that point, was to be incarnated as a maggot in his own nostril. Right. It's pretty disgusting. But this is the picture of
What?
he became a maggot in his own nostril. A worm on his own corpse, basically. If you love your corpse so much, here, have another go round with it, basically. Right. I mean, these are illustrative stories from a very whacked out book that's very difficult to internalize as a Westerner. It's also the same book that talks about the hungry ghosts, which have giant bellies and tiny little mouths, and their necks are stretched and they can never get full. They're just constantly hungry forever, which is an allegory for addiction, which is, it's quite the picture. Ruthie said to me, teach the Book of the Dead. I'm like, I don't understand the Book of the Dead. I don't think I could teach it. I said I could draw pictures of the hungry ghosts because I relate to that guy pretty good. The fat bellies and the tiny mouth that can never get full. So the preparation is central to our practice, getting ready for death. And they practice for the event so that they could do the transition without creating any further karma. So grasping and aversion are sort of the things that we're trying to get beyond with enlightenment. This is why we practice constantly of not being attached to things in this realm. This is why we sit on our mats and try to let go of even the need to move or the need to itch or the need to swat that mosquito, right? We sit here with our urges and our needs. We push them aside in order to gain mental faculties so that when this time of death comes, we will be ready for it. It's taught in Buddhism that you can jump a couple of levels at the time of death. Say you were ready to become, there's like 20 levels of bodhisattvas. If you were ready to take a jump to the next one due to the merit that you've had in this life, you can jump a couple of levels by being super prepared and open to what you find at the time of death. So Buddhists are very careful around this time. They don't touch the body. They don't wash the body. When people are dying in Buddhist sanghas, nobody mourns around them. Nobody brings the bad vibes. Nobody wants to confuse the person that is dying that it's not okay to let go and go. that the people behind will be so sad, so you don't want them having any kind of push-pull effect at the moment of death. They want to be sure that the next level that they go to, the next realm, is the right one for them. So there shouldn't be any emotional pull from the loved ones that they're leaving behind. Which is, I mean, for us, if we believe that the next stage of the next birth that we take, I mean, we get to, when it comes to, sorry, I'm going to back it off. If we do not take the Bodhisattva vow, we're supposed to come back in samsara on another circle around and see if we're ready at the end of that life for enlightenment. So we're either supposed to be rebirthed or enlightened at the end of each life. And many of us cannot really let go of this, the beauty of this life. We can't even see that it could be any better. And until we're fully convinced that enlightenment is better than this life that we're living in this realm, we will continue to be reborn. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely no reason why everybody needs to be a bodhisattva. We are, in fact, I wondered what the bodhisattva was for. Why is there such a thing? And I started looking into that a little bit. Why are there anybody, does everybody know what a bodhisattva is? Does everybody understand what that is?
Yeah.
Can you explain?
I should back that up. So a bodhisattva is a person who's taken a vow to not take enlightenment at this time, at the end of this life that they're working on, in order to stick around until everybody is able to become enlightened. So basically they're turning over this life that they're living right now and all future lives to the salvation of all. Well, I shouldn't say salvation, because salvation in Buddhism is kind of a weird one. It's not quite how it goes, but we'll call it the relief of all, maybe. To everybody that wants to get enlightened will be able to get enlightened before these guys say, okay, I'm ready. So we were talking about, it's almost like you do the steps 1 to 8. You internalize the Four Noble Truths. You use the Eightfold Path towards enlightenment. And at the 8th step, you're at base camp. And you sit there and you say, I can see the summit being enlightenment. Is it my time to summit? Should I summit? Do I want to summit? Can the summit wait? Should I become a Sherpa and get everybody from over here onto the summit before I do my own summit work? It's something like that. The Bodhisattva is sort of like the person sitting back and deciding, I know how to get to that summit. I'm going to take everybody with me before I summit myself. It's a hell of a commitment. I'm not sure I would take it. I think I may have in the past life, and I'm going to have a talk with myself about that, because I'm really not sure that's the thing to do. So when we get to the end of each life, we can either be reborn in absolute ignorance, just going around and around and around. We have learned nothing, and we're not even on the path. We've never been exposed to Dharma, and we're just going to keep circling. That's called samsara. And there's this vague dissatisfaction that's called dukkha. And if we, as Westerners, Pam brought a great point earlier, we may not even be able to imagine the end of suffering. And if we can't even imagine the end of suffering, do we buy into enlightenment? And if we buy into enlightenment, do we think we deserve it? Do you think we are capable of getting there? And it's all one path. It all goes together. Even if you're not ready to become enlightened, all the same steps about living a life of virtue and merit will get you to the end of a happy, healthy life here, doing less karmic harm, as the exact same steps as will get you to enlightenment. So there's no harm in doing these things towards enlightenment. It's never a wasted effort. So it's absolutely worth it. When I think about the bodhisattvas, well, my teacher told me, he said, we all think that we would like to meet up with the Buddha in the deer park and go for a walk. And the thing is, in this day and age, if we walk by the Buddha, we wouldn't recognize him. We'd probably be asking for a little money to get going further on to the States in front of the Dhyame. Our Buddha, as we think of him, is not some famous teacher sitting in robes. Our Buddha is often, or could well be represented here as that beggar we walk by on the way in and out of the grocery store. That's probably the form that the Buddha would have. And certainly the bodhisattvas, which is, back to what's the point of a bodhisattva? That was where I jumped up a while ago. I said, what is the point of having these enlightened people that haven't fully, or almost enlightened people that haven't taken their full enlightenment? What are they doing here? What is the point of them? Well, they're supposed to help us get to enlightenment. And then I read this thing just yesterday. I said, so the world wouldn't be devoid of all the enlightened people. Several of them have just come back. It's basically keep joy and beauty rotating around here amongst all of the bad karma that's going on. The bodhisattvas give us a counterbalance in this existence, which is like, I had never thought of it like that. And I was like, okay, I like it. I like it. This is what these beautiful people that have decided not to take salvation right now for. I keep coming back to help the likes of you and me. And there's probably a couple sitting in the room. I wanted to know if anybody here has heard of Swedish death cleaning. Have you done it? Tell me about it. What made you do it?
The whole idea of like
Coming
getting rid
here.
of all, need and kind of getting all your affairs in order.
Coming here to Costa Rica. Right. Does everyone know what it is?
No.
Okay, so Swedish death cleaning is when you decide to get your home and garage and all that in order, as if you're about to die, and thinking about it from the point of view of somebody else having to go through your stuff and get rid of your crap or organize or whatever. So it's an exercise in thinking about the world without you, basically, which is kind of what we're doing right here, right now. Just thinking about what would happen when I'm gone. Sandy, you wanted to talk about this topic so much, and I want to know what your input is on that.
Why I wanted to?
Yes, you brought it up a couple of times.
I mean, the only reason, it's just been on my mind for so long because it is so much a real part of life.
Right.
And I think without really understanding that we're going to die and accepting it, that our lives will never be quite as fulfilling. You know, I think the finite nature of life is a good thing in a way.
What gives it that exquisite edge is knowing it's over.
Yeah, nothing
Absolutely.
Nothing can go on forever. And I think in a way it's a blessing that it doesn't.
Right.
Just to appreciate, I think. So I'm just interested because I have no idea what it's like. And I have had a near-death experience. I think we talked about this.
You did.
When I was probably 18 or 19, and it happened 2 or 3 times. Definitely was a near-death experience. I don't like to talk about it, but I feel I can talk about it here, where I left my body and I looked down at myself, and I really felt that if I let myself go, I could go forward to this nirvana. It was a beautiful experience. It wasn't a scary experience,
Right.
but it wasn't my time, and I came back to my body twice. So that just having that experience, wow, that's amazing. You know, I mean, really, it can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be so terrible.
Are you afraid of dying?
I'm afraid of leaving the people I love,
Right.
you know, but I'm more accepting of it now, I think, than I was a few years before.
The near-death experience, I had one when I was about 25. Same thing. I've never been afraid of dying ever
Yeah,
since, because
yeah,
I've seen the
yeah.
other side, and it's quite beautiful and lovely and so forth. But I don't know how to convey that to people that have not had that experience, how lovely it is. But I do know, I talk to people, it's like, why are you afraid of dying? And most people are not. Most people are afraid of being irrelevant, leaving behind no legacy, or it hurting at the end, right?
Yeah.
Pain and sickness,
Yeah.
old age, decay is more what we're afraid of than the actual lights off for this life kind of thing. But I find it really quite hopeful as a Buddhist, thinking that if I do things right, I keep my spirit open, I'm not too attached to this life, good chance I'm going to get a better go-round than the one I've got here. So I find it kind of exciting. A couple of times since that near-death experience where I didn't know that's what it was at the time. There's been twice where I thought I was going to die, just like close calls with car accidents and things like that. And both times what went through my head was, here we go. Open curiosity. And I told my teacher that, and he's like, perfect, that's what we want. That's what you want, open curiosity, just no feeling one way or another about it. And the equanimity that we all strive for on this cushion, getting used to uncomfortable things, becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, can help us get to that point where we're just centered in the next happening without having any feeling about it going one way or the other. And he said that is just the absolute perfect way to meet your dad. Yeah. Beautiful. Has anybody else got a fear around death and dying? It's pretty universal. No?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a fear, but I'm not looking forward.
You're not looking forward to it.
Apprehension.
Is it the unknown?
I don't know what it is.
It's the unknown bit. Right. Most cultures and religions all say the same thing: is get your act together. If you're afraid of dying, get your act together, right? Go tell the people you love that you love them. Go do that apology. Go offer that forgiveness. Clean up your side of the street. Come to love yourself. And these, every single religion I've ever looked at has the same information. If you want to be much more comfortable with dying, take care of those things, like this afternoon. Because that precious human life thing that we're talking about, a turtle. Has everybody heard this? If you've been studying Buddhism at all, you'll know the story of the turtle coming up in the middle of the yoke, which is basically like a life preserver, in the oceans, after the oceans all cover most of the continents. This is how precious the human life is, according to the Buddha. The likelihood of getting the human life is the same as a turtle bobbing up in all of the oceans through this particular yoke, which is sort of like a life preserver. That's how rare human life is, according to the Buddha. Or another way he said it, somebody threw a handful of beans at a mirror, handful of chickpeas, I think, at a mirror, and he said, see how many stuck? That's how many. That's the chance of having a human life. That's how rare it is. A garbanzo bean sticking to a mirror kind of chance. Not a whole lot of chance. Then you truncate that by death can come at any moment, right? We've got this precious human life that was so rare. To have a human mouth to speak with, to have a human heart to exult with, these are so rare. And then anytime the end can come, should enhance the exquisite rarity of that. I mean, when I think about that turtle in the yoke thing, I want to run home and meditate more. I want to do better. I want to be better. I want to settle my affairs. I want to do more spiritual action, because once you really internalize how rare human life is, how precious, and what a chance it is to advance for us, for every sentient being on the realm, in this realm and others. Once you realize the weightiness of it all, it just makes you want to go do the hard work. Be, as strong as you can for all beings. And then I add the death piece, that not only is this life so rare, it could just be gone like this afternoon. And I hope it gets you riled up to think of it that way. But that's what it does for me, is I get riled up. I want to be better. I want to do more with this little life. Let's see if I've missed anything in my notes.
And I think it also makes you realize, like, how many different forms of consciousness are there out there? We're just one little, universe. There could be so many other things like this universes with all.
I mean, I think of the Earth as just this little teeny
Yeah.
speck when you think about that. You know, what is it
Right.
in life? I mean,
Right.
there could be so many possibilities.
Right. Yeah, the awe-inspiring notion that this is just one little speck, right? And then what else? Of how many galaxies, right? Like, it blows the mind. It's almost impossible to fathom
Yeah.
how teeny tiny we are. And if there is all of this spontaneous co-arising that happened to get us as humans here from little, I don't know, blobs of bacteria into us, thinking, feeling, acting human beings, all that thing that had to happen here, why wouldn't it happen on another planet over there and over there and over there? Why wouldn't it? It would be stupid, it would be arrogant to think that it's only happening for us. So, even more work to do, right? Even more. No, I mean, seriously, even more poignant to get to the bottom of what this life is for, and living our best lives, doing what we can for. Well, really, it's either selfish or service, right? Almost every question comes down to that: do I want to be of service or do I want to be selfish? And then the Bodhisattva is like the ultimate service vow that you can make. And is this how it's going to go for me? Do I want to keep rolling on back to help all you guys? I'm not sure about that yet. No, I'm not sure about that yet.
And what about, I know a lot of people, when they think about death, it's about their loved ones dying, and that's really what gets them.
Right.
Buddhism, say about that.
Well, we've got attachment, right? We've got attachment, and most attachments, the hardest ones to let go of. Wait a second. How do I say this? Buddhism doesn't tell us we're going to be seeing our loved ones in the future. Although it's almost a given that if we're in a Buddhist group together, we are going to be reincarnating with people whose karma is intertwined with ours. But from life to life, we're not going to recognize them. They're not going to recognize us. We won't even have the same personality in the next life, because that's a construct of this world and this brain and that body and so forth. What goes on, the Buddha piece that goes on from life to life, is not really recognizable as your mom and your dog and so forth. But it doesn't mean that they're not with you. In fact, we're probably just one giant being. If the ideas that are forming in my brain are right, we're probably just one giant being. And your mom is like your leg, and your dog is like your arm. The whole big thing. But people missing their loved ones after they die, it's just an attachment, right? And we've already sort of learned that attachments cause us a lot of suffering, and that the end of suffering is harshly the end of attachment, even those great people that you love and taught you wonderful things.
I think kind of adjacent to that, that makes me think of a phrase that I say every day in my chants is all mother sentient beings. All mother sentient beings. Because there have been so many go-arounds and so many go-arounds and so many go-arounds that at some point everyone here has been your mother. And for me, sometimes I use it as a tool to work with someone who's given me a hard time. Where I'm like, I gotta love you like your mother. Like my
mother,
you've
yeah.
been my mother, you know? Or there's that, I'm gonna, it's not really a story because I don't remember the story, but I think Lama Dorje has told a story about the man who's sitting, having his lunch, he's got a dog, his lunch is a fish sandwich or whatever, and, he's yelling at the dog, who's his father, and he's eating the fish, who was his mother,
Right.
in this other lifetime.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of, to me, if I put that spin on it in my thinking, then it's hard for me to miss anyone. But also, I have no personal experience. My parents are alive, my siblings are alive, So I'm kind of a little bit, it's
You
a
haven't been there yet.
mysterious.
You're too young.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mysterious thing for feel lucky to have some of these phrases and some of this education now that I can, I don't know if help my parents is the right phrase, but, you know, to just witness all mothers and champions.
Yeah, it's in my notes as well, is that everybody has been your mother. It's a lot to wrap your head around, right? How many lifetimes does that have to be for everybody to have to be each other's mothers? How many years did that go on? Like, whoa, right? The whole infinity concept of everything happening all at once in all the realms, it gets to be a lot, but it's pretty simple when it comes to like people that are getting on our nerves, people that we have to do service for, whether we like them or not. Well, even if they haven't been your mother, they're probably going to be your mother. So, right? But we don't carry the knowledge from life to life, so it's not like we can, you know. I mean, I always joke and say I want to come back as one of my own dogs. I really do. They got it good. They got it really good. There was something else that just you brought up that triggered something, and then I can't remember what it was. KJABD. After death, the Tibetans think that we don't know we're dead for a while. They think we've been for like up to 49 days, but there could be some confusion. And the dead person, then they're trying to come back and trying to visit, and it takes a while for all that to decay. Basically, the energy that is the spirit of the person, it takes a while to decay. And like a lot of old stories from different faiths, if you have unfinished business, it's hard to let go and things like that. So that was what how to treat somebody in the Sangha who is passing away, not to get the grieving energy around the person, so as not to cause any confusion, basically. That's where that comes from, is that they think that there's quite a lot of the person left for 7 weeks after the death. There's one more point I wanted to tell you about.
So, Tana, what is the suggestion with Buddhists, how you go through the death of someone in your Sangha? What are the suggestions about that?
Just to keep it as calm as possible. It's just light music, being there for them, but really no histrionics, no big emotional outbursts. If you can't be keeping it together for them, leave the room, get yourself together and come back. You don't want to confuse the essence of the person as they're moving along, that they owe you to stick around. So basically make it not about you while you're witnessing the death of the other person, right, for the sake of them.
But having been with someone who passed away, at the moment, yeah, I found that giving them permission to let go
Absolutely.
seems to have an effect.
I think that that's a pretty universal. People that work with people in the death business, palliative, I think we'll hear that story a lot.
And hospice in general.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
About after they're dead in the 49 days, you supposed to bring it in, or, you know?
I don't think so. I think in the presence of the body, you're really supposed to rein it in, and you're not even supposed to watch the body.
Your pillow at night or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's these, something like a little altar, or somewhere that you can work through your feelings a lot of times by doing some little offering to the person. They do ancestor worship in most Buddhist countries, so they have a picture of their loved one, and maybe do flowers, water, incense, that sort of thing. This can help the people that are left behind in grieving put some shape to the grief, which is, you know, much of the whole funerary thing in our culture is actually comforting for the people that are left behind. So that's one way to do it. And every 7 days for the next 7 weeks after death are significant times for the person that's transitioning. So I think prayer for a fortuitous rebirth is always welcome, and just some reverence around the death room, I think is kind of important.
Pretty much they're on their own. Like they live their life and transition their life and
See, the monks that are training in this, there's some like secretive Tibetan tantric stuff that only after you've joined up and taken vows you get to know. But it's all over the internet nowadays. It's like they train as like, okay, at a certain point in your death you're going to see red sparkles, and this signifies that this portion of your consciousness is shutting down. Don't run back to your old life. Then next you're going to see a mist rising, and it represents this portion of your consciousness shutting down. This is what the teachers teach the scholars for them to prepare for their own deaths, that this is what it's going to look like as you die. Don't get confused. Don't run back. It's all okay. This is how it looks like as you die. I don't know who wrote it all down, but they truly think that these two things are going to happen, and that's in the 49 days. This is after we in the West would call it a day.
oh, that's after they're dead.
Right. This after the death of the body, this consciousness dying is it's the dance mix. It's the extended version. You know, it is compared to us,
For
right?
any being or just for him?
I don't know. I don't know.
Sorry, what did you say?
For any being.
Or just for humans. I don't know.
Mama comes on Tuesday.
Right. And you know, it's a good question because I'm a dog lover. I've adopted many dogs, and for a while I was adopting only geriatric dogs. For a while, only palliative dogs, and many of them I put them down. I did euthanasia on them, and that's quite frowned upon in Buddhist circles. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
No, you're supposed to allow your animal
To die naturally?
to die naturally. To allow them to go through, because, well, here's the thing. You may have robbed your dog. I may have robbed my dog of what he had to go through to not be born again as a dog. Right? Maybe he could have been a person on the next round,
But you...
and I messed it up. Right. Right? Sure. I mean, the other thing is,
You can give that to your dog.
right. The other piece of that is that we interfere in dogs' lives by fixing their teeth and keeping them on diabetic drugs, and like we give them all sorts of things to extend their lives unnaturally anyway, right? So it's kind of like where's the hand of man come in and out? So I don't feel too bad about putting my dogs down at age 19 or 20 after artificially keeping them alive to that point with all the interventions, right? It's kind of a bit of a play, but it makes you think that the way we die clearly does have some kind of the process of dying is important to the next stage after the death. How does it go will reflect on how the next rebirth comes. So I don't want to get put down. At least right
Okay,
now.
so you're not an advocate of like NAID or any of those things.
Oh, I didn't say that. No,
Or you
no.
just say, okay, because I mean, we can do it to our animals,
Mhm.
but I think we should also be making go along.
Is that
No,
the
my-
Canadian?
What?
Is that the
Oh yeah,
Canadian?
Canadians.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Made
NAID.
medically assisted intervention.
Intervention, death, yeah, something like that.
No, my aunt did it last year. My dad's sister did it last year, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And yeah, it was beautiful. But same thing, like, if they just took away her support, she would have died. So it wasn't like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she was...
Not necessarily, it was medically assisted life.
Right, it was medically assisted life, exactly. You pull that away and...
She's gone.
right, right. And it's really quite beautiful to choose our time of death, but that's not how this thing was laid out, right? We were... The randomness of it all is part of what we were saying before. You know, you take the preciousness of a human life as we're living it, and then truncate it with death that's coming any old time, and you don't know when. It adds to the poignancy of this life. Yeah. So, yes.
I had two thoughts while you were speaking about the condition in which we are and how we artificially extend our life now on our planet is, I for myself, I think, is beyond. Because when you look in the nursing homes, people are so sick in these days
Right.
that they say we would shut down the pharmaceutical industry just for a day. No pills, nothing. People would just drop like life. So our life, we talked about the beauty of life, live to the fullest, consciously, do everything what we can do. We actually don't. Because in the moment when we go, my leg is not so good, I have a headache, pill. And this is artificially getting ahead of life. And yeah, I'm just saying for myself, when you do this, then you're so mixed up because you artificially put you back to life, and now for sure when you really die, you don't want to do it because you think, oh, maybe there is a little bit more oxygen for me left, so I can live one more day, but it's like you talked about your dog, right? It's I think we are put on a path, and when it was so bad and you cannot really like come back to your strength, then the result you have to deal with it, but we don't. We artificially give it to somebody who will fix it for me. This was one thing. But the other thing you said, preparing to live, when it is easier to let somebody go, is it necessary to have this meditation that you imagine your life is all this what you like. Your dog is not here anymore, your partner is not here. And it was funny, I went to a birthday party really happy, and then suddenly he talked about death. Maybe they know that I'm coming here today. I don't know. And we had this conversation, and the saying was, it was really helpful. You know, every day you wake up with your partner and you have a good life and you're happy, blah, 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 but in your mind, you prepare yourself. So what is tomorrow when he or she is not there? And three ladies said, oh my goodness, oh my life would be finished, I could not imagine, oh my goodness, and I'm thinking, I believe you, this is all your feelings, but life has to continue. And I'm just saying a little tiny piece out of my life. I was surrounded by lots of death. So my mom died really painfully when I was 25, which was my first death. My son almost died in my arms, but he made it. So I had this experience to come back. Somebody comes back to you. And then in 1 year, then first my shaman said to me, oh, see you sometime. You don't have to come back to me, so, not in 3 months or 4 months. And he died. Now I know my lesson was done. So in 7 months my dad died, my shaman died, and my partner died. So I could sit there and cry the rest of my life, but I said, so what does it mean? And then this lady said, oh, I cannot live. And you know what? You have to learn it. And I had this very special partnership from the beginning. We said to each other, and we was a little bit older, we said, you know what, you can die tomorrow, but I said statistics, I die before you, and I don't want that you cry, nothing. The next day you go and do what you like to do. And I did. I took my backpack, I went and I went on a big trip, and I did my own reflecting of the situation, but not covered in black and sitting and crying my eyes out. I was thankful for this beautiful years and what I learned from it. So yeah, that can be different, but what we do with it is all in our hands. That's my little thoughts to this.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie.
I feel like it's a bit of a gray area going that, perhaps yes, we should let things progress as they are, but sometimes there's something you can do along the way that either eases your suffering or there's a medical intervention. Like say you get a diagnosis or something and you're given a chance to either continue on the same path that you are and suffer through that path or take the other path, accept the intervention. It might prolong your life, but it might also increase your suffering in the moment. Which path are you supposed to take?
That's the thing.
Take it for your child. If your child had a diabetes diagnosis, you can actually go to jail if you don't give them insulin because it's But you look at it too far. Oh, they got it. Oh well, something happened.
Right.
And now if you're not too ages, but if you lived a long life, you're 106, you've got other things, then that might be different.
Right. And
This world has given us these tools and some awareness over like eat certain food which has medicinal health benefits versus others. You want to be aware it's like probably a line somewhere between taking a pill for a clear target and trying to get rid of every little thing to blunt feeling pain or
Right.
the experience.
Look at all the childhood diseases that are gone because of vaccines, right? Like, nobody wants to go back to iron lungs. Why would we, right? Clearly, the universe gave us spontaneous core rising enough to get you brilliant people, doctors, doing brilliant things to the likes of us, and that's all part of the good plan.
That's something that's part of Buddhism too, to have this version of today
Right.
with all this stuff and to live within it in a way that doesn't cause harm.
Absolutely. No, and I think the whole a little bit of that angels on the head of a pin thing. It's like, what would this world be like without medicine? What would this world be like without doctors? Would we be better? Would we be dying more innocently and younger? And right, this whole. This is the one we're operating in. And I remember when I was younger, I was thinking, if I ever got cancer, I wouldn't go through all that chemotherapy stuff. If I got cancer diagnosis right today, I'd be like, Canada, coming home, book me some chemo, right? Like, it's all very easy when it's not you, it's all very easy.
Yeah, you want to feel the preciousness of life is to be around family.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the thankfulness in the thankfulness of science
Right.
and where we're at these days, and the people who are just so full of joy and thankfulness for that experience. So it's easy to think, well, I wouldn't want to go through that chemo, or I wouldn't
Right.
want to but there are many people who are successful.
What now your path and what all contribute to becoming
The unknown unknown.
Just out of curiosity, Sharon, I mean, you know, sort of tell, but I mean, really, I mean, well, he was so much critical, right? It was a
Does anyone add anything or anything at this time? Who would like to do love and kindness? Sharon's the
I'll be happy to do it, but if anyone wants to do
backup
it,
plan.
as Pam brought us through, find your comfortable spot and few deep breaths. Then we'll do the 5 circles out, starting with yourself. And find that place in your heart opens up to feeling mindfulness in this moment, these few moments discussed. And we begin with ourselves. And we say to ourselves with love and kindness, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I be calm and peaceful. May I be joyful and healthy. And may I be happy. And then you next consider someone, whoever that is, and it could be your pet, whoever, that brings joy to your heart when you think of them with love and it fills you up, and you say to them, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you be calm and peaceful. May you be joyful and healthy. May you be happy. When you think of someone who you may not know, but casually, or maybe have never even spoken with them, but you're somehow in your life, passing them on the road, and you say to them, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you be calm and peaceful. May you be joyful and healthy. May you be happy. And then the next is someone who you may be in conflict with, or you don't feel comfortable when you think of them. And you take a deep breath and you open your heart to them and you say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you be calm and peaceful. May you be joyful and happy and healthy. And then the farthest out, the way out for everyone, everywhere, anything that is alive in those in the universes that we don't know of. You open your heart up and wide and you say to all, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you be calm and peaceful, free of suffering. May you be joyful, healthy, and may you be happy. And take a deep breath. Thank you for alive. Right.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We're going to finish up with Ruthie's benediction of the Unitarians. Is that what it is? Unitarians? Unitarians, yeah. Go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving light